So this presentation is about changing your culture. So I have been at executive and agile coaching since 2006, and I've learned a lot of things during that time. And one of the things I've learned is that you can change your culture in 3 days. So I want to show you exactly how to do this, and then I'm going to show you some tools and things. So here's where we're headed, right? Basically, we're going to discuss a little bit about culture in green, and then we'll discuss the importance of decision making and aligning decisions on the flow of value to improve your company. And then the fourth, in red here, we'll look at how boundaries are managed by executives, by highly authorized people in the space, not by scrum masters or product owners or teams. Okay. And then I'll be discussing some takeaway tools that you can use in your actual work, okay? So that's where we're headed. We're headed in this direction in this class, okay? And then along the way, we will discuss patterns of interaction. We will take a look at a couple of group processes called open space technology and OSA in red. And then we'll discuss executive coaching a little bit and how to prepare executives for what's about to happen. And then we'll talk a little bit about the connection between persuasion and storytelling, okay? So that's where we're headed. So for those of you that really just want to know right away how to change the culture, I'm gonna just tell you right up front, I'm gonna give you the spoiler. All you have to do is change how decisions are made and who makes them. That's how you do it. Because here's what actually happens. Your culture, the primary bedrock thing at the bottom of your culture is the way authority is distributed. Specifically, it's about who gets to decide for the group about the direction of the group's work. So anyone who's in on decisions that affect the whole group is a leader in that system, in that leadership system, okay? So when you change the way decisions get made, it changes culture, okay? That's because communication paths, policies, norms, they all sit on top of this authority distribution schema or the system of authorized decision rights, okay? So most companies have an org chart that describes the formal authority of decision making and who reports to who. There's also influentials who don't show up on the org chart ever, but they are very important to the overall process of the group's functioning. So all of those people together form the leadership system. And there's a problem with this, right? There's a problem with culture change, and here's what it is. I just told you that if you change the way decisions get made and who makes them, it will change your culture, okay? So I want to give you an example now. Let's say that you're implementing Kanban in this, you know, in your company. If you use Kanban or you know about Kanban, you know, if you know what it is, just type a K into the everyone chat if you know about Kanban. Okay, so a couple people do. Most people do. Okay, good. So most people know about Kanban. So most of you know that for Kanban to actually work, there's something called work item type that is an attribute of a ticket, you know, of a piece of work that before it enters the workflow, we need to characterize the work by work item type. Okay. And this work item type has a bundle of properties connected to it. One of them is cycle time, which is like how long it's going to take to get the work. So work item type actually indirectly defines how long the person's going to have to wait, right, to get the work. So in most Kanban systems in most companies, the work isn't defined by work item type. It's just put on the board and it goes through the flow to do, doing, done, and that's about it. But if you're going to implement Kanban in a real way, you need a boundary manager at the edge of the board who, when someone shows up with a piece of work, that person has a conversation at the boundary with the person who's requesting the work, and we have a nice conversation about what the work item type is, right? So there's standard work usually, and then there's also what's called expedited, work item type expedited. And that means everyone drops what they're doing, everyone swarms and focuses on this one piece of work, and then, until it's done, we don't do anything else, right? So there's standard work, expedited work, other types of work item types. Hey, guess what? If I'm a developer at the edge of the board, I usually have less authority than anyone else who's bringing work to me, right? So by definition, I'm telling authority what to do at the edge of the board. When they show up and they want their work expedited, and I say, no, that's standard work, you get it in 10 days. And they go, no, it's expedited work, I get it in 1 day or sooner. And we have that conversation, and they attempt to bully and force their way onto the board and onto the workflow. When I go and tell the executive in charge of this area what just happened, and he or she gives the requester a talking to and reminds them not to do that again, because we're doing Kanban in this company, and Kanban has a boundary, and the boundary is maintained by a team member who has a conversation about work item type. And, if it's standard work, it's standard work. The team gets to say that. They have the decision rights regarding the work item type. Hey, that story gets around, that somebody who went to that team and tried to push something was not able to push it, and that the team was able to maintain the boundary of the Kanban board. That story gets around in about 3 days, and that's going to change your culture, okay? So that's how you change your culture in 3 days. How many people have ever seen a story go around the company in 3 days about somebody who tried to do something and they couldn't do it? If you've ever heard a story like that going around your company, just put a Y for yes into the chat. Okay. If you've ever heard anything like that, where somebody tried to force themselves, sort of force themselves into the decision-making process, and they didn't. Thank you for that. Yeah, we've all seen that, right? Okay, so that's the big spoiler. That's how you change culture in 3 days. You change it by changing the way decisions get made and who makes them. Okay. That is actually a really cheap thing that I'm saying there. I'm saying I can change culture in 3 days by changing the decision rights, but the reality is that it's going to take months to change the decision rights. Okay, so that's the reality. So how are we going to do that? That's the real question. How are we going to do that? Well, the first thing that we're trying to do when we bring in ways of working changes, in blue here, aligning decisions with the flow of value. This is what we're out to do. We want to increase the value flow. That's the only reason to make changes to the way decisions get made. Okay? I mean, don't do it. There's no other reason to do it except to improve business outcomes, right? So let's take the example of Scrum, which most people know, or we could use Kanban. Let's go with Kanban and keep going with Kanban. We're going to bring Kanban in, and Kanban is going to change our culture if we implement work item types, work and process limits, if we implement policies, and so on and so forth. Okay, it's going to change your culture because it changes the way decisions get made about the work and who makes those decisions. Okay. So the real question is, how are we going to do this? So, I'm going to be giving you some documents and tools and goodies that you can use coming out of this talk, right? And I'm going to give you some tools. And one of them is a checklist for decision makers, for executives, where we go through Kanban, we go through Scrum, and they get to understand what are the changes in the decision rights going to be if we're going to implement Kanban. What are the changes in decision rights going to be if we implement Scrum? And executives need to understand how to support the Scrum, how to support the Kanban, so we have to have that conversation with them, okay? And then part of that conversation might be that they don't even want to do it. They're like, oh no, this is too tough, we can't do this. Well, don't you want to find that out now instead of later? I mean, that's what I'd like to know. I'd like to know now before I spend money, right? Time, effort, money. So let's have that conversation and find out what the executives are willing and unwilling to do, okay? So if you're going to make changes that increase the flow of value, you're going to be getting involved in design of new ways of working, okay? You're going to change the way work is getting done. I am going to offer you the hypothesis that like Scrum, Kanban, those are games, okay? And the title of the Scrum Guide, it says the definitive rules of the game. That's the subtext of the Scrum Guide, right? So look, these are the properties of a good game, okay? Goals, like what's in it for the person. Rules, what are the constraints and boundaries? Then feedback on how they're doing, how are they progressing? And then opt-in participation. So these 4 bullets are the 4 properties of a good game, okay? And when we bring in new ways of working, we're bringing in a new game. And I want to bring something up now. Everybody needs to feel these perceived senses. Everyone needs a perceived sense of control, a perceived sense of progress, and a perceived sense of belonging, okay? Now, you know that when we've all been at work and we've seen someone edged out or nudged or forced out of their job, right? What's the first thing that happens in that progression, right? What's the very first thing that happens if executive management wants somebody to be nudged out or quit? What's the first thing that usually happens? Can somebody put that in the chat, please? What's usually the first thing that happens? It's usually something very subtle. Somebody want to tell me? You know, think about a time where you've watched someone get forced out. What happened to them? What was the first change to their job? Like, you know, when this process started where they were going to get nudged out, what was the first nudge? What's the first thing that usually happens to their job? Think about their responsibilities, for example. Are they increased or decreased? Yeah, loss of responsibility. What about loss of decision rights? Same thing, right? Maybe they have fewer people reporting to them now. Maybe they don't make decisions about product anymore. Pretty soon they wonder what their job is and they're gone, right? Okay, so when you bring in Scrum or you bring in Kanban and you change the way decisions are made and who makes them, most people are very, very sensitive to that. And they are going to resist because that could be signaling something much more ominous, like the end of their job. Does everyone understand what I'm saying here? So when you bring in new ways of working, you're triggering a whole bunch of people who are now afraid for their job, because the reduction of responsibility, the reduction of decision rights is usually the first thing that happens. So we've got to get clear on what it is we're doing and who's involved and so forth and so on. So you need to exhibit certain patterns. I want to show you a couple of techniques. Now keep this in mind about the goals, the rules, and the feedback. If we think about Scrum, the goal of Scrum, working software. The rules of Scrum, there's 3 roles. Only the product owner prioritizes the backlog, and so forth and so on. Only the team can pick from the top of the backlog, right, for the sprint. And then there's feedback, the daily Scrum, the retrospective, the sprint review, right? And then it's supposed to be opt-in. That's what a good game is. It has opt-in participation. We usually flunk out with this. We're bringing in Scrum and we're not actually preparing anybody. That's right. We're putting the system under stress. That's exactly what's happening. So if you want to change culture, you've got to change the way decisions get made and who makes them. The only reason you would do that was to increase business value and the flow of value out of the value streams. So how are we going to do this? Well, one of the things we're going to do is we're going to basically try to get people in a little bit at a time, right? Work with the willing people. So this has to do with inviting, with gameplay. What we need to do is set up a system where people actually want to play the game and they're not triggered, okay? So what I want to do is explain something to you. I want to show you a video of an executive that I have actually worked with. This fellow has 900 people under the span of his authority. He actually did 8 open space events around the world, okay, to like warm up his 900-person engineering team to the idea of making changes in the way decisions get made so more value could be flowing out of those value streams. So in Europe, in the USA, in India, we did open space events. We did 8 open space events around the world. 3 of them were online. This guy was a very command control-y kind of a guy, and he was trying to implement culture change, and he just hit a wall, okay? And what we did was we brought open space events in so people could warm up to the idea of changes to ways of working, and that they could be inventing some of those changes. And in inventing, they were engaging. Okay, so I want to show you this executive story, okay? Because open space technology is a big part of how you're going to change your culture. Okay, so if you've been to an open space event at an Agile conference or any place else, besides an organization, not in an organization, but like at a conference or somewhere else, if you've been in open space, just put O equals Y into the chat that you've done it, that you've been in open space. Have you ever been to an open space technology event? You know, I want to get an idea because I can't see you. So the only thing I have is a chat to have a sense of it. Yeah. Okay, so a lot of people have. Okay, that's good. I really wish I could see your faces, by the way. So, you know, I just want you to know it would be good to see your faces, but I mean, you know, I can't. So, you know, that's how it is. So now I'm going to show you this video. This guy's name is Jake O'Leary. Listen carefully to his words about how he got everyone into new ways of working, how they changed the way decisions get made, and how they used open space as a tool to actually make all this stuff happen. Okay, I'm gonna show it to you. It's gonna take, it's a 2.5-minute video. It's not long at all. And I'm gonna share my screen, and then you tell me if you can see the screen. And here I am getting ready to share it. Here I am actually sharing it. Can you see that? Just put a yes in the chat if you can see the thing that says open space leadership. Just put a Y into the chat so I know that you can see it. Yeah. Okay, good. All right, so here we go. Listen carefully to this guy. He was very command control. He did 8 open spaces that addressed 900 people around the world. Listen to his testimony. Okay, whoops, I have to share it again. Whoop. You can see it? Yeah, everyone can see it? I'm assuming you can. All right, here we go. Yes? Okay, here we go.
We're in Burlington, Massachusetts. You're at Nuance Communications. My name's Jake O'Leary. I run an R&D organization that's just over 900 people globally. We produce AI, speech, virtual assistants, and other capabilities. A little over a year ago, we started a journey of redefining our culture. I saw that we got to a point where our success and progress started to come to a bit of a halt. And I just so happened to crash into the open space concept, attending an event. Obviously, culture takes a long time to manifest and change within an organization. The light bulb just went on that in open space as a way to drive this cultural transformation, to create the culture that we're looking for. And from the moment we did it, everyone was engaged and it just worked out. It was positive. I think people were surprised. I was surprised, to be honest with you. The moment that we got past the open circle, the moment that the board started to fill up and people started to submit topics, and then we started to see what I consider healthy topics and engagement was there, I immediately, obviously, I felt some sense of relief. And then by the wrap-up circle, at the end of the event, and after having to attend it personally, hearing people's closing comments, it turned to me in terms of happiness and joy. It was a success, and it was a success in that here was a new approach to solving problems and bringing people together to collaborate and share ideas. And this new approach, you know, yielded benefit. The people that participated in it saw value. The people that participated in it contributed. And I then started to build more champions for this open space idea ultimately. And with each open space event, and as each leader sat through those events, one after the next, I kept hearing about the success stories, and it just repeated itself each and every event. That was the moment I knew we had something special. And so you had to kind of embrace the fact that in this situation, let the organization lead the way forward and let leaders kind of rise up to drive things forward. It's extremely important not just to show the organization that leadership cares, leadership's present, leadership's just as engaged, but I actually think it's critically important for the leader themselves.
So there you go. How about you score that video on a 1 to 10, where 10 was like, that was really interesting to me, and 1 is like, this is a total waste of my time, and 5 is like, meh. How about you just put in a 10 if you liked it, a 1 if you hated it, and a 5 if you thought it was okay. All right, did you listen to that guy? Okay, we got 1 10. We got 1 response, and it's a 10. Anyone else want to respond here? So I wonder who else is around. Yeah, there might not be too many people around here. Okay, there's a 5, there's a 9. Okay, that's better. All right, so if you enjoyed the video, you know, or even if you didn't, I just want you to score it so I can get some feedback on how this is going, right? Okay, so there's only a couple of responses, so I'm not quite sure what that means. But okay, now let's discuss a little bit more about gaming. So open space is a meeting, and meetings, I believe, are games. So goals, rules, ways to track progress, and then opt-in participation. Meetings are actually games. So if you design it as a game and it's well-formed design, it's going to be good. Okay. If the design is bad, you know the whole experience is going to be bad in the meeting, right? Because a meeting is actually a game. So I want to discuss a little bit about gaming with you now, because if you're going to change the culture, you're going to bring new ways of working. There's going to be new rules and constraints. Okay, new rules and constraints that we didn't have before. We're going to have now. We're going to change some rules. We're going to edit some rules, and we're going to add, change, and delete some rules. That's gaming. So you have to start to think about this as you bring Scrum, bring Kanban. Those are game designs. Kanban's a game design, so is Scrum. So the real question is, are the people having an enjoyable time or not? Okay, so I want to show you one more video about gaming now. And this is only a couple minutes long. And hold on just for a second. I'm going to show you that because I think you'll enjoy it. And the last thing I want to do is waste your valuable time or bore you, you know, because that's just not going to work. Okay, so now I'm going to show you another video about gaming, and the topic of this is the epic win. Have you ever been at a job and just really, really enjoyed the idea of reaching for a little bit for a goal that's just out of reach, but if you exert effort, you can reach it? And then everyone has that celebration together where they all reached a goal together, and it was so enjoyable to strive for that and to make that happen. How many people have ever experienced this idea of the epic win, where there's a celebration about the win, and it's something that's even greater than you even thought you could achieve with the group or individually? Has anyone ever had an experience like that? Maybe once or twice in your life at work, you've had the hell yes experience where you're like, yes, we just totally killed this and we crushed it. Yeah, the hell yes. Yeah, that's what you want to bring on at work. Okay. So people are being triggered by the way their decision rights are being changed. We want to turn that on its head, and we want them to have a good time, right? And the way we're going to do that is through game design and gaming. Okay. And by gaming, I mean designing an experience for human beings that's enjoyable and fun. Okay. Most of these Agile adoptions, they're really not fun. What are some of the reasons why Agile adoption is not fun? How about you put that in the chat? What's one reason why people don't like it or are pissed or whatever? What are some of the reasons? Can you put them in the chat? Yeah, forced change. That's a good reason. Nobody likes being pushed around. Not fair. Not fair in what sense? Like not fair because, like, for example, Mark, not fair because if you want to add a little bit more to that, that would be good. So forced change, not fair. There's a sense of injustice, no choices, being out of options, right? All of these reasons. But remember, a good game has opt-in participation, okay? So around the world, for example, Scrum has clear goals, clear rules, and a clear way to track feedback, but it's not opt-in. That's why your Scrum sucks, okay? That's why your Agile transformation is bad. That's why it's not enjoyable. But let's discuss the epic win. What if you could make it really fun to change? No equity knowledge between a participant and another person. Yeah, there's an asymmetric amount of information. Some people don't know what the rules are and so forth and so on, right? And like a secret group knows what's happening and then another group doesn't, right? What if you could go to work and you had this, which generated a whole bunch of this, okay? Here's what's going to happen. I'm going to show this video now. It's a 2-minute video on the epic win. Okay. I'm going to show that to you now. Here it is. Can everyone see that where it says TED? Just put a Y in the chat if you can see it. Okay. So I know, because I can't see your faces or anything. I only have the chat to go by. So a couple of yeses I need to see so I know that everybody's got it. Thank you, Morgan. Thank you, Vanessa. Okay, here we go. Watch this. This is great.
I'm Jane McGonigal. I'm a game designer. I've been making games online now for 10 years, and my goal for the next decade is to try to make it as easy to save the world in real life as it is to save the world in online games. Now, I have a plan for this, and it entails convincing more people, including all of you, to spend more time playing bigger and better games. Right now, we spend 3 billion hours a week playing online games. Some of you might be thinking, that's a lot of time to spend playing games, maybe too much time, considering how many urgent problems we have to solve in the real world. But actually, according to my research at the Institute for the Future, it's actually the opposite is true. 3 billion hours a week is not nearly enough gameplay to solve the world's most urgent problems. In fact, I believe that if we want to survive the next century on this planet, we need to increase that total dramatically. I've calculated the total we need at 21 billion hours of gameplay every week. So that's probably a bit of a counterintuitive idea, so I'll say it again, let it sink in. If we want to solve problems like hunger, poverty, climate change, global conflict, obesity, I believe that we need to aspire to play games online for at least 21 billion hours a week by the end of the next decade. No, I'm serious.
Games at work. Games at work.
This picture pretty much sums up why I think games are so essential to the future survival of the human species. Truly. This is a portrait by a photographer named Phil Toledano. He wanted to capture the emotion of gaming, so he set up a camera in front of gamers while they were playing. And this is a classic gaming emotion. Now, if you're not a gamer, you might miss some of the nuance in this photo. You probably see the sense of urgency, a little bit of fear, but intense concentration, deep, deep focus on tackling a really difficult problem. If you are a gamer, you will notice a few nuances here. The crinkle of the eyes up and around the mouth is a sign of optimism. And the eyebrows up is surprise. This is a gamer who's on the verge of something called an epic win. Now, oh, you've heard of that. OK, good. So we have some gamers among us. So an epic win is an outcome that is so extraordinarily positive, you had no idea it was even possible until you achieved it. It was almost beyond the threshold of imagination. And when you get there, you are shocked to discover what you're truly capable of. That's an epic win. This is a gamer on the verge of an epic win. And this is the face that we need to see on millions of problem solvers all over the world as we try to tackle the obstacles of the next century. The face of someone who, against all odds, is on the verge of an epic win. Now, unfortunately...
Okay. That's the face we want to see at work. Okay? People that are excited, engaged, and happy to play the game. The Agile stuff around the world is not fun to play. It's forced. It's a mess. It's, in terms of its game design, it's horrifically bad. Okay, these are the 4 properties of a good game. Okay, you have to set that up. How are you going to set that up? Well, that's the next step I want to talk about. How are we going to align decisions on the flow of value, right? That's something that we want to talk about. Here's the best way I know. You bring open space, a whole group process. You bring this meeting format into your Agile work. This is a whole group circle where people are sitting in a circle. This is 1 o'clock. There's 3 events that I can attend that are breakouts. I can attend 3 of them per hour, and then we close, and it's closing circle, and a document comes out that we make decisions with. Okay. Over here, there's leadership preparation. Over here, there's action planning. In the middle, we have a conversation that's at least 1 day. Okay. Open space. See this? This is a 1-day timeline. That 1-day timeline is represented here and here. This timeline is 45 to 90 days. It's a wider timeline that starts with an all-day open space event and ends with an all-day open space event, with 45 to 90 days of experimentation, inspection, adaptation, iteration in the middle. This is open space agility, and this is open space technology. Okay, this is a 1-day meeting format that this is built on. Okay, and I'm going to give you links now that have, links to all the stuff. I'll put it in the chat, and I'll also give it to the organizers so that you have these links. Okay, so here's a whole bunch of links about this stuff. I'm just going to drop them right into the chat. And there's your links right there. Okay, so if we look at open space, this one right here, open space, there's that page, that second to the last link right there, will show you exactly how open space works, what you need to know. This is the page right here that link goes to. All right, so it has videos like the one you just saw. It also has description of what you need to do open space. It describes how to do it. Here's some audio, some video, some pictures, and then a brief user's guide on how to do this. Okay, you can just use this to learn how to do open space in your own organization. If you want to bring on the epic win, you've got to include everyone in the process of changing. The primary way to do that is open space. So here's a tip for you. I want you to use the retrospective process that you're already using in your own company to bring together teams on related backlogs and teams that have dependencies with their products. Every 90 days, every 45 to 90 days, have a whole group retrospective, use open space as the container and as the structure for that. And when you go to executive leadership, just tell them we're not doing anything different. We're still doing retrospectives. We're doing a group level retrospective every 4 or 5 iterations, or every 6 iterations, or whatever it is. And get those teams together for the whole day. You can do it online. It's not hard to do online at all. It's very, very easy. Okay. Now, how many people, put in a yes or a no if you've ever been to an open space inside an organization where you work. Put in say yes or no, just N or Y. If you've been in an open space where you work, put in a Y. And if you've never done an open space in your company, put an N. Okay, so this is kind of encouraging. It's about 50-50, yes and no. I want to tell you something. An open space in a company is a lot different than an open space at a conference. Okay, an open space at a conference, if you irritate me, I don't really care because I don't have to see you tomorrow. So I don't have to get upset about it. But if we're in the same company and you say something that alarms me or offends me or whatever, you know what? I care a lot because that's my company too, right? We have to face each other tomorrow. So we're going to have that conversation now. And that's what happens in open space. In open space, everyone is invited. Nobody has to show up. So when I coach executives, that's what I teach them, is we're not going to make people come to the meeting. If you want to make people come to the meeting, we'll do some other kind of meeting. But open space requires invitation. And oh, by the way, invitation also has a structure. You have to name what's in it for the people. It's usually the exploration of a theme, like how are we going to improve? Then there's rules, when we're going to show up, when we're going to end, the 5 principles, the 1 law, the idea that anyone that calls a session has to put together proceedings that are going to go into a book, right? And we're going to track progress through time and through task as we move through, and it has to be opt-in. So you can see open space itself is a very good game because it's opt-in, and these 3 things are well defined, okay? And that's going to generate a whole bunch of this, and that's going to make people feel good. Let's talk about that for a minute. If you have a low sense of control and a low sense of progress and a low sense of belonging, that's a recipe for depression, okay? Most people who have some well-being, they have a sufficiently high level of perceived control, progress, and belonging, okay? So open space and games in particular deliver on those perceived senses, because you're in control if it's opt-in, and you have belonging because you agree to the rules with everyone else, right? And then progress tracking is something that has to be part of the good game design. So we teach this to executives, and the real question is, how are you going to persuade people? How are you going to move people in the direction that you want to go, okay? So we're going to have to engage in a little bit of persuasion. And persuasion is sort of like on this timeline, or on this continuum, this is clever manipulations, right? This is total manipulation, and this is total invitation. So these is opposites: inviting, which is totally opt-in, and then manipulation or compulsion or forcing or coercion, which is not, okay? And this is the midpoint right here. And as we can see, persuasion is in the middle somewhere, but it's really on this other side, because you are potentially manipulating people if you use persuasion, if you study persuasion. And just as an idea of some persuasion things that are going on out there in the world, here, take a look at this link. There's something called choice architecture, where you frame the choices so people kind of tip in the direction you want them to go. And then a fellow named BJ Fogg also teaches his behavioral model, which I'm going to put in the chat as well, and then show you. And there's the link, and here's the screen. And he's describing how you get people moving. So if people have high motivation and the high ability to do it, then you can prompt them to do it, and they will. But below this line, it's going to be harder. Prompts kind of fail below the line, and then they succeed above the line. So I put that link in the chat. That's a BJ Fogg persuasion model. I put also stuff in there about choice architecture, so you have some idea about that. What I'd like to point out to you before I'm going to stop now and take some questions. I need to teach you, like this talk is about changing your culture. Pardon me, it's about changing your culture and how culture is a game, right? Well, hey, guess what? In 2012, I wrote this book called The Culture Game. Okay, so I've been thinking about this for a long time. And you might want to look at that book. And then in 2015, I wrote this book with my co-authors on the open space agility, okay? And open space agility is this structure that uses open space, okay? And the link is in the chat. And then in 2018, Mark Sheffield and I wrote this book, Inviting Leadership, okay? And this is all about the opt-in component and how do executives weave in invitations with those delegations. Around the world, we're forcing Agile on people without their consent. Is it any wonder that it's just a disaster, right? Is it any wonder that it's a disaster? So now I want to show you a couple of other things. One thing I want to show you right now is the 8 patterns of of healthy evolutionary change. Okay, here it is. The 8 patterns of open business agility. Okay, leadership invitation is the keystone pattern. These other patterns support leadership invitation. And the most important ones are explicit agreements. Have we all agreed to do Scrum, to do Kanban, to do Agile, to do Safe? Have we all agreed? Because if we haven't, there's going to be trouble. Okay. Secondly, what's my authorization level? Do I really have authority over the backlog as the product owner or not? And then the boundary management. When I told the story about Kanban, I said there was a boundary manager at the edge of the board who determines work item type with a conversation with the requester, right? And then you put the thing on the board. But there's boundary management, and executives have to do that. There's a few other things here. Empirical approach is all of agility, basically. Whole group process is a group process like open space or, you know, any whole group meeting type, like any kind of liberating structure is part of this. And then common knowledge is you know that I know that you know. Okay, so that we teach a class on those patterns. You're all getting a discount code that takes 50%, half of the price off. It saves you hundreds of dollars if you use the code. Okay, so I put that in the chat, I believe. Oh, here's the class right here. Here's the classes in the code if you're interested in what I have to offer. So this is not a marketing event. So, you know, let's be clear about that. That's where you can get the class on the patterns, and there's the code right there for FRU Agile. That's how you do it. So if you want to change culture in 3 days, what do you have to do? You have to change the way decisions get made and who makes them. Does that happen theoretically when you bring in Scrum, when you bring in Kanban? Yeah, in theory it happens, but in reality it doesn't. So I'm going to give you some tools that will help you. I'll distribute those with the organizer of the conference. And now I want to take a couple questions or two. So I'm looking to the, you know, the moderator to, you know, curate or moderate these questions. So just put the question in the chat if you have a question about anything I presented. We have about 10 minutes. I want to take a few, open up space for a few questions. The last thing I want to say while you're forming your questions is you're going to have access to executives if you're going to have any shot at this. And to have access to executives, you have to be communicating with them. And to communicate with them, they have to accept you as a trusted advisor. Okay, so are you perceived as the hired help, or are you perceived as a trusted advisor? This is a really key question. You do coaching, you know, you do mentoring, you do facilitating, you do teaching, you do coaching. Hey, that's all great, but if you don't get access to executives, if you don't understand how to act like an executive coach, you'll never implement system level change. It's not going to happen because you don't have access to the people who have budget authority, decision rights, and so forth, right? So we teach this, and this is actually a key skill if you're going to get involved in culture change, okay? You're going to have to access the executives who are going to authorize changes in the way decisions get made. Now, I'm going to give you a tip for this. How many of you have ever talked to an executive and had them doing something else while you're talking, and they go, "Oh, just keep going. I'm busy with something else," and they got their phone or they got their laptop? Anyone who's ever experienced that, put a Y in the chat. Where the executive's looking away, they're not really listening to you. You're talking, and they're doing something else, but they're pretending they're listening. Have you ever seen that? Who's seen that? Maybe a few people? Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm going to put a link in the chat that's going to help you understand why. Okay. And here's the link. When the executives are talking, when you're talking and the executive's looking away, here's what you're going to do. You're going to stop talking. Here's why. The visual dominance ratio. The visual dominance ratio is from the social sciences. It's a non-verbal indicator of status. Okay, non-verbal indicator of a person's status. Here's how it works. If the executive talks for a minute, and you look at them in the eye for 45 seconds of that minute, that's 45 over 60, it's 0.75. 3/4 of the time, you looked them right in the eye when they were talking. What's going to happen now is when you're talking, they will look at you for less than 3/4 of the time, basically signaling that you are lower in status and not at the same level. Okay, they're asserting their social stance is what they're doing. So if you want to be a trusted advisor, you got to act like one. So when executives look away when you're talking, I want you to stop talking. That's my #1 tip for today. And we teach that in the executive coaching class. That class is coming up on the 30th of November. It's called Acting as an Executive Coach. If you sign up for that class in the next week, you can take 50% off. The first 6 people can actually save, half of that. It's a 12-hour class. It's a great class. Go look at the testimonials, you'll see. So can I take any questions here? We have 6 minutes. I'd like to take a question or two from somebody.
I have one question then on my side.
Okay, what is it?
You mentioned you had with this executive you showed up before, you had 5 in-person OSA and 3 online. So
That's right.
what
Yep.
was the dynamic? Did you observe some dynamic change having open spaces online? And how did you manage it so it's still efficient?
Well, first of all, I want to say open space has a principle that wherever it happens is the right place, right? So if it's online, if it's in traditional formats, those are both okay. The main thing is that people are not compelled, that there's an attractive theme that people really care about, that there's a high opportunity for conflict because people have strong opinions, and that no one person has the solve, or no one person has the answer on how to solve the problem, right? So when those conditions are in place, it doesn't matter where the meeting happens. Online is going to be just as good as face-to-face. So there's some great tools that are coming out now that we can use beyond Zoom. There's some new tools that allow circular arranging of seats and more of an experience online that's closer to the natural hotel ballroom type experience. We're all in one big room. So the feedback I got from that executive was that the people in the open spaces online had the same positive feedback about the experience that he got from the face-to-facers. Okay? So yeah, I mean, it works online. The main thing is that you're inviting people and they're not compelled, and you have to make sure that the big bosses allocate the time to actually attend the meeting, and there's no competition with work or getting a release out or something like that. The space needs to be open in time. The time needs to be open for people to come and do it. If the message is, oh, come to this meeting, it's really important, but if you have to work or get this release out, go do that. No, that's not a recipe for success online or in traditional formats. Executives need to create the space where people feel like they can come if they want to. Okay, so there's that. Any other questions that I can take as we finish up here? We have 3 minutes to go.
I have just one last question. Again, how does each leader emerge for each open space?
Yeah, so at a large software company whose name that will not be named, we had a guy hold up a session and go, my session is, now we were implementing Scrum, okay? My session is how Scrum can never work in our company. Never, ever, ever. That's my session. If you agree, come to my session. That's the session he did. How Scrum can never work here. Okay. That guy emerged as an emergent leader in the transformation because within a couple months, we won that guy over. And the way we won him over was with the open approach. Okay. And if you actually want to hear his story, you can go to the Open Space Agility site and go to the customers and testimonials, and you'll see his testimonial. I'll just go and get it for you under the clients tab. There's a video link of this fellow, and he became one of the biggest supporters of the overall change. Okay, that's what actually happened. So little by little, people will tip. If somebody is vocally resistant, they could end up being an emergent leader like this guy. Because when people are loud about their resistance, it's because they care. They're passionate about caring. So go watch that vid. This is a guy who initially said Scrum can never work in our company, and then in this video he says this is the best way of working he's ever experienced, and that he's never going back, and he's always going to work for a company that implements open patterns. That's what he said. This was the same guy that was saying Scrum can never work in our company after only 2 months, right? Boom. So this stuff actually works. On the Open Space Open Leadership Network site, there's a bunch of videos. And I think I did give you a link to all those videos, but just in case I haven't, here's the actual link to videos and podcasts, and you can use these to talk to executives and have a conversation with them. The Jake video is there, other videos are there, and I hope that you feel free to use those in your own work. Okay, so can I take another question or two, or are we finished? We only have a minute to go, so.
1 minute left, and I see Scott is already there to prepare his next session. So let's. So
we're good.
We're good, absolutely. So thank you very much, Dan.
You're welcome.
For his very inspiring session.
Enjoy the remainder of the event. I hope it's a great remainder of an experience for everyone. And yep, you're welcome, Morgan. Yep, my pleasure to help you out, or Morgan. And you can reach me. How do you reach me? You can reach me at danielmezick.com or on Twitter at Daniel Mezick, right here, or on LinkedIn. You can find me on LinkedIn. Okay, so I hope to hear from you. Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. I'll connect back, and it's my pleasure to serve you today. Thank you. Okay.
Cool. Thanks so much, Dan.
Okay.
See you soon.
You're
Bye-bye.
welcome. Bye-bye.